Hi, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me today for this special presentation called 5 Steps to a Healthier Heart. My name is Sheila Caldwell, and I'm the founder of the Heart to Heart Foundation. But the biggest thing you need to know about me is I am also a heart attack survivor. I had my heart attack at the age of 50. That is over 7.5 years ago, so I'm approaching my 8th rebirth day in May. And I am always incredibly grateful and honored to have the opportunity to share our message of prevention and hope with other people. So thank you again for taking some time out for me today. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. Just a reminder that any information, all information provided in this webinar is for general information and educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for medical advice or care. Always refer to your healthcare provider regarding any specific questions or concerns you may have. And if you are having symptoms that you think could be related to a heart attack, please stop what you're doing. Call 911 for emergency assistance now, because that can mean the difference between life or death, okay? All right, now that I've said that, let's get started. So today, the type of heart disease we're going to be talking about is actually the most common form of heart disease. There are several different types of heart disease if you didn't know that, and if you'd like to learn more, go to our website, the heart2heartfoundation.org, click on resources, and you can download a one sheet from the Heart Truth. It's called Know the Difference. You can download that and read it. You can share it. Great information to help you understand the different forms of heart disease. We're very blessed to be a community partner of the Heart Truth and the Healthy Heart Network because they give us a lot of great resources that we can use both online and in our programs and events. So download that, feel free to make good use of it. But today we're going to be talking about the most common form of heart disease. It's so common, in fact, that over 17 million Americans have it. Over 17 million of Americans have this disease. There are a number of us who have the disease that don't know it yet. The good news, if there can be good news about heart disease, is this is also the form of heart disease. When we talk about heart disease that is largely preventable, this is that form of heart disease that we actually can do something about. And that gives us hope, and that's what I want you to keep in mind as we chat today, okay? So let's break down heart disease one little bit at a time, okay? 90% of women in the US already have at least one risk factor for heart disease. A lot of us have more than one. That means if you're a woman listening to me right now, you probably already have one risk factor for heart disease. Do you know what it is? Do you know what to do about it? Are you doing something about it? Those are really important questions, aren't they? 64% of women who die suddenly from a cardiac event did not report prior symptoms. The same is true for about half of the men out there. So the question comes up, did they have symptoms? Did they recognize those symptoms? Or did they just ignore them? That's why it's so important that we know what our risk factors are for heart disease. We know what the warning signs are for heart attack, especially in women, because many of us do present differently than the men. And we know what to look out for so that we can get that early help, because that could save our lives. Every year here in the US, we lose over 600,000 women and men to heart disease. Do you realize that is more deaths than from all of the cancers combined? That's a lot of people from a disease that is largely preventable. Something to think about, isn't it? Most of us don't even know that we have heart disease until we have a heart attack or worse. You've probably heard or maybe even known of someone that you thought was relatively healthy. Maybe they looked healthy on the outside. Could be a younger adults in their 40s or 50s, and they had a heart attack and died suddenly. And people are talking at their funeral service about how we didn't even know that that person had heart disease. Chances are they didn't know it either, which is why we do what we do. Here's the hope part that I talked about. 80% of the risk factors that lead to this most common form of heart disease can actually be prevented or managed. Now that gives me a lot of hope. That one statement changed my entire life because I thought, wow, if 80% of any disease, heart disease, cancer, you name it, if 80% of any disease can be prevented or managed, that means we have a chance of beating this. That means we have the opportunity, we have the resources that we can win the fight against our number one killer. And that gives me a lot of hope. And we're going to tell you how to do that. All right, so step number one toward a healthier heart. You need to know your risk. This is a personal conversation about you with you. You need to know what your risk factors are. You've probably heard this one before, to know your numbers. What numbers are we talking about? We want you to get a basic heart health screening. Now, this is the start of the conversation about your heart health. A lot of people stop after this step. This is actually just step number one. This simple screening can reveal your blood cholesterol, your blood glucose or your blood sugar, blood pressure, your body mass index, but we're not going to just stop with your BMI because that can be a little misleading in some people. We want to look at your waist circumference. For ladies, is your waist more than 35 inches? Fellas, how about your waist? Is it over 40 inches? Because if both of those numbers are high, that also increases your risk for heart disease. And we want to look at all of your other risk factors for developing heart disease. Remember again, what was that number? 80% of these risk factors can be prevented or managed. So, knowing your risk factors, we want to break this down for you to help you understand it. There are some risk factors that you and I can't change. We cannot do a darn thing about, right? Family history. You hear this one a lot. What we're really talking about here is a family history of early heart disease. Now, family history was my biggest risk factor. I grew up knowing that, but that was still my biggest risk factor. Very often, whenever I'm speaking or we're doing some kind of a community or corporate event, somebody will walk up to me and say, you know, so-and-so in my family had a heart attack in their 70s and passed away. And they're concerned because they're thinking that's a risk factor for them. And while I sympathize with their loss, I'm glad to tell them that's not necessarily the case, because what we're really talking about when we're looking at family history is if your brother or father had a cardiac event before the age of 55 or your sister or mother before the age of 65. And then even when we talk about that, we have a conversation about, well, what was their lifestyle like? Did they smoke? What did they eat? Did they exercise? Did they have type 2 diabetes? Because all of that is going to factor into their heart health. That may not be you. So that could be good news for you, but you need to know that family history. A lot of times I'll have people who don't know about both of their parents or either of their parents. They're adopted. And today, of course, we have a lot of genetic testing that can tell you more about your heart health, and it's getting more and more affordable. So that's good news. Gender. More men have heart attacks than women. However, since 1983, more women have died from heart attacks than men. So ladies, it is really important for you to know your personal risk for heart disease. Race and ethnicity. If you are African American, Native American, Asian, or Hispanic descent, that can put you at higher risk for developing heart disease, and your age. Typically, we see heart disease more prevalent in men by the age of 45, by the age of 55 in women. So men, you're getting heart disease 10 years before us. However, what we are seeing is that heart disease is hitting adults younger and younger. The other day, I was speaking at an event and somebody shared with me that they knew a 25-year-old that had just had a triple bypass. Folks, I've been sharing this message for 7.5 years, and that floored me. A 25-year-old having a triple bypass. Cardiologists that we work with are telling us all the time, we're getting to people before they have the heart attack, so we're saving lives. But the increase in heart attacks that we're seeing is happening in younger and younger adults. So age, if you are 45 as a man, 55 as a woman, you need to know that that puts you at higher risk, but even younger adults are developing heart disease at an earlier age. Now, these are the risk factors that we can do something about. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes and prediabetes, sedentary lifestyle, smoking and secondhand smoke, weight, and stress. And under stress, I would include stress, anxiety, depression, inability to sleep. All of those things can increase your risk for heart disease. The second step toward a healthier heart is to feed your heart. Now, what do we mean by that? We need to get back to eating real food. And by real food, I am talking about a diet that consists mainly of plants, fruits and vegetables, lean meats if you eat meat, or you can do other protein sources, whole grains, and drinking more water. If you look at the SAD diet that most of us follow, the standard American diet stands for SAD. If you look at what a lot of us are consuming on a daily basis, it isn't really real food. If it comes in a box, a bag, or a bottle, and if you eat a lot out, fast food, convenience foods, processed foods, you're going to find that in many cases, those have been enhanced with flavorings or colors so that they're more appealing. But they don't have a lot of nutritional value, do they? And that's what we're feeding our bodies, and that's what we're feeding our hearts. One of my favorite little sayings out on social media is, if we are what we eat, then don't be cheap, fast, and easy. But that describes most of our diets, because that's really where we've gotten to, is it's cheap, fast, and easy. Too darn convenient many times, but that's where we are. And that's why we're having a lot of the health issues that we're having. There are children in this country that are overweight and obese that are also labeled malnourished. So when you pick up those items in the grocery store, or you're eating out and you're looking at the nutritional value, don't just look at the grams of the fats and the sugars and the sodiums, although that's really important. Go all the way down to that ingredients list. Learn how to be a label reader, and that's a webinar for another day. But learn how to read those labels, because if you see something that has more than 10 ingredients and you can't pronounce them, leave it on the shelf. It's not real food. It's not going to nourish your body. It is certainly not going to feed your heart. So make sure that you are eating real food, good food that feeds your body, that feeds your heart. And the remarkable thing about the human body, whenever you start eating real nutritious food and you get used to eating that way and your body adjusts to that, you're going to find it easier to lose the weight, keep the weight off. You're going to feel better those times that you maybe overdo it a little bit, overindulge, eat the wrong thing. You might feel punky for a couple of days and you can't wait to get back on eating well. It's not that you can't enjoy life and you can't enjoy treats. You do, but treat them as treats. But for the most part, if we could get people to eat healthy even half of the time, we could make such a difference in their health. And that goes for the kids all the way up to the seniors, by the way. Step number 3, move your feet. And you know what we mean by that. The guidelines are that you should be exercising about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. For some of us, either through physical issues or time restraints, 30 minutes at a clip may be a challenge. 10 minutes. After you eat, go for a 10-minute walk. Somebody once asked me, Sheila, what's the best form of exercise? Well, that's actually pretty easy to answer, because the answer is it's the exercise you'll actually do. And it's what you enjoy doing. How many of us will join the gym at the first of the year, or we buy a new piece of exercise equipment and life happens, we get busy, we don't go to the gym, the exercise equipment becomes a clothing rack. Life does happen, but find the things that you need to do. If a gym keeps you motivated and keeps you focused and keeps you accountable, and you need that socialization, go to a gym. For some of us, we like to take those walks around the block and get that sunshine and fresh air and just kind of quiet our minds. That's great too. After my heart attack, because of other physical issues I was having, exercise was extremely difficult. I had suffered from debilitating chronic fatigue for a long time. So trying to get back into exercise was difficult. So I found water aerobics worked for me. I lost 30 pounds. I got back on track. Today, what I like to do is I like to dance. I have a YouTube folder that has about 4 or 5 of those videos that have dances from weddings and events that you go to, that you like to do. At a party, we'll do them in your living room. But again, if you have to break up your day and just go for a couple of 10-minute walks during the day, do that. If you have not exercised in a really long time, probably a good idea to talk to your doctor before you begin a new exercise regimen, just to make sure you are heart healthy enough for that. But start where you are. Do something, but get moving, because what you do for your body and what you put into your body are still the cornerstones of a healthy heart. Step number 4, take some breaths. We all have stress, don't we? Sometimes we have more than our share. Some of us are really good at creating extra stress, and I'm talking to myself here. I remember one time sitting in a doctor's office and them telling me, you need to learn how to control your stress. I wish it was as easy as it sounded, because at that moment, you're about ready to break and you're like, I can't take any more. And if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't be sitting here. But that's where we find ourselves sometimes, don't we? But for me, as a heart attack survivor, this is something that I have personally had to learn how to do. There is something about surviving a near-death experience, though. I will tell you that a lot of the things that I used to really get worked up about and worry about, I don't anymore. You get very hyper-focused on what's important to you and how you spend your time and with whom you spend your time. You get really focused on the important things. But even with that, trying to deal with stress. So one of the things I like to do, and it actually helped me while I was having my heart attack at home alone, believe it or not. But one of the things that I like to do when I start feeling that stress and I start feeling like life is just spinning out of control and you've just got to clear your mind, is a breathing exercise. And it's breathing, but it's also going to what I call my happy place. And so it is very simple. You take a slow breath in for 4 counts through your nose. You hold it for 7 counts, and then you release it through your mouth for 8 counts. You've only got to do that 3 times for it to work. If you do it more than that, you might get dizzy. But while you're doing that, if you can, close your eyes or picture in your mind a place that brings you peace, that maybe you were happy. Maybe it's your grandparents' farm when you were a kid. Maybe it's the mountains. Maybe it's the beach. I have my special happy place location, and that helps kind of calm you. But if you have to do that, do that. If you have to excuse yourself and go to the restroom and sit in the stall and do that to bring some calm, do that. But that breathing will help and get that oxygen back in your body. If you meditate, if you pray, whatever works for you that helps you center yourself and calm yourself, give yourself permission to do that, but learn to take some breaths, okay? Number 5, kick the habit. And by the habit, you know that we're talking about smoking, right? So smoking is the most preventable cause of early death in this country. Smoking. Did you know after you stop smoking after just 1 year that you have cut your risk for heart attack in half? In half. And think about this too, especially those of you with children or grandchildren. As a smoker, they inhale and they exhale. But if you are exposed to secondhand smoke, do you have that same opportunity? And we know that smoking and secondhand smoke are both detrimental to your heart health. There are free programs out there. Sometimes your healthcare provider or your local hospital has smoking cessation programs. Every state has programs. They have wonderful resources. Some of them have support 24/7 that you can find ways to help you kick the habit. But for your heart health, for your overall health, this is really important that you kick the habit. So those were our 5 steps to a healthier heart. Not real complicated, are they? And one of the things that I would encourage you to do too is that, pardon me, if your doctor has prescribed medications, make sure you're compliant with those. And if you have side effects that bother you, don't just stop taking the medication, call your doctor. Let them know that. Sometimes you have to try different ones to find the one that works for you because we're all individuals, aren't we? So the next steps for you, here's what I want you to do next. Visit our website again, thehearttoheartfoundation.org, and download some of those free heart health resources from the Heart Truth, from the Healthy Heart Networks, from South Carolina DHEC. There's lots of great information on our website that you can download and print and read that can help you in your heart health journey. There's lots of other great information out on the web as well. But educate yourself. Do your reading. And then know your numbers. Find out what your risk for heart disease is. Get that screening done. You can get a screening done through your doctor's office, through a local clinic. We're affiliated with Quest Labs. If you go to our website, howsyourticker.org, you can actually click on Find a Lab, and there are labs all over the country where you can get a basic heart health screening done at a very low cost. Here in the Charlotte metro area where we're located and throughout the state of South Carolina, we work with healthcare providers who actually make these heart health screenings available to people over the age of 18 at little to no cost. We work with our local healthcare provider here to do screenings every single month because we want to help you know your risk for heart disease, but more importantly, we want you to help you learn how to win the fight against our #1 killer, because that is hope. Once you know your risk factors for heart disease, start with small changes. Add more fruits and vegetables to your diet. Fresh and frozen is great, but if your budget only allows canned vegetables or canned fruit, choose the low to no sodium or the low to no sugar versions. If that's an issue, just make sure you rinse your veggies before you cook them to get that extra sodium off, because sodium is one of those things we have to watch, isn't it? But start with those small changes. Avoid the vending machine at work or at school because there's probably not a whole lot in there unless it's one of those healthy vending machines that has a whole lot of nutrition in there for you. Instead, bring your own from home. You're going to save some money, plus you can control what you're eating. Watch the sugary drinks, and I'm a Southern Belle. That goes for your sweet tea too, your sodas, your fruit juices. A lot of added sugars and empty calories there. And then start that 10-minute walk a couple of times a day, and then work up to where you're walking more. Dance a little bit more. Remember to breathe. Do all of those things. Just start with small changes and work up, because too many times we try to do too much at one time and we kind of sabotage ourselves and we just can't sustain it. So start with small changes and then reward yourself. And as you do more, do a little bit more. And after a while, you're going to find out you've created a whole new lifestyle for yourself. Get your friends and family involved. It's really fun to get kids involved in learning how to look at those labels and quickly identify what's a healthy food and what's not, and getting them to talk about healthier items they might like in their lunches or for breakfast. The biggest thing with children is watching their sugar intake as well, and helping them understand that, and finding ways of introducing healthier items into your menus every day, because this is a family affair. We want to get you heart healthy first and then share that with your friends, your family, your community, so that we can reverse this trend of heart attacks claiming so many people so early. And finally, if you're over the age of 40, listen up. If you're over the age of 40 and you have at least one risk factor for heart disease, go to our website, testnotguess.org. On the upper right-hand corner, there's a little button that says Take Our Quiz. Take that quiz to find out if you might qualify for a coronary artery calcium scan. This is a 10-minute screening. It's non-invasive. You don't even have to undress for it, but it can detect heart disease at its earliest stages. It is not yet covered by insurance, but you may be able to use your health savings account if you have one. I will tell you that in most cases it costs less than my hair color. So it is affordable. But look at that, read the information, and if you think you qualify for that, you'll get some information back from us about it. Talk to your doctor. Any physician can order this screening for you. We do have some facilities that provide this at a reduced cost, and we'll be happy to help you find a place where you can get this done. So make sure you take a look at that as well if you are over the age of 40, okay? So these are some of our signature programs. How's Your Ticker is our statewide heart health screening campaign here in the state of South Carolina. We work with healthcare providers all over the state to help more men and women over the age of 18 learn their risk for heart disease. And by the way, if you have a family history of heart disease, you should start having a heart health screening by the time you are 18. Our Test Not Guess program is really focused on educating more adults about coronary artery calcium scans to help you learn your calcium score. This particular screening is being used by more and more doctors to help them identify those that may be at risk of a heart attack and to help them know how to treat that person. So make sure you talk to your doctor about this. Our Red Heart Mamas, that is our fun women's heart health advocacy group. We realize in order to really help women in this journey, we need to give them more information that they can also share with their friends and family, and to kind of do it in a fun way. So this is our Red Heart Mamas. It is free to join if you're a woman over 18. You can go to redheartmamas.org and join there. We have a private Facebook group where we also share with one another, and we would love to have you as a member of that as well. Always, you can go to the hearttoheartfoundation.org and find links to all of these. So thank you again for spending time with us today. We want you to keep in touch. Since you signed up for this free webinar, we'll be sending you our free newsletter. Make sure you add admin at the hearttoheartfoundation.org to your contact folder so our newsletter doesn't wind up in your junk folder. You can also visit us on Facebook at the Heart to Heart Foundation. And if you have questions, feel free to post them on our Facebook page. If it's something you don't want to post there, you can always email us. If we don't know the answer, we will find somebody who does. We will find you a link to the resources or the information to help you on your heart health journey. But thank you again for spending time with us today. We really do appreciate it. And the biggest thing I want to leave you with is to remember this: the better you love your heart, the longer it can love you back. Stay heart healthy, my friends.